Okay, so this is a 1970 BSA Bantam. Now, what I'm doing is I purchased this Bantam with logbook and the lack of an engine. Now, you can buy original BSA Bantam engines. I think this was 150 or 170cc Bantam originally. Now, you can buy the engines and restore them and put them back into these bikes. As far as I know, they're all kickstart engines. Now, what I'm trying here is I'm fitting in one of these what are they called, something moto engines of a Venom motorcycle, one of these Chinese jobs, a 125, and it's a 125 electric start engine. Drawbacks changing this. Okay, first of all, the sprockets should align, but in order to make the drive sprocket and the wheel sprocket fall into alignment, you've got to set the engine in a particular location. Now that means the bias position location of the engine is having to be moved slightly over to the right, so that we can get an approximate alignment between the front and rear chains. Right, this is a little comparison of my BSA Bantam compared to the e-bike that I've customized. You can see the Bantam's considerably smaller than my World War II Luke e-bike, my Royal Enfield lookalike fake. But you know, there's more power in a 125 Lexmoto Venom engine compared to that. This is probably about 10 horsepower, whereas that there is half a horsepower, something like that. Yeah, so maybe 3/4 horsepower on the electric bike. So considerable difference. The bracket sort of worked out okay to the front. I've got to sort out a few more brackets, a top bracket and rear engine bracket, but the engine's already quite solid in there. I've ordered some new tyres to go on the wheels. I've added extra length on the frame mount, so it will take the bike off the floor. So if I push the front down, I can spin the back wheel, and if I put the back down, I can spin the front wheel. So I've got the balance just about how I want it, sort of. Yeah. Right. So this is how the bike is evolving. As you can see, I'm painting it up in this deep bronze green. Slowly I'm doing various parts, done the wheel arches, and I've done my engine mounting bracket and so on, but I've not painted up the frame yet. The reason I've not painted the frame up is because it may need to be having some modifications done. As I've explained, the rear brake to the rear wheel connects to a bar linkage, and that bar linkage, or the remaining part of that bar linkage, is here. and you can see it's sort of a bit sort of messy at the moment, and it hooks up to the brake pedal there, and you can see there it makes that bar pull forwards and backwards, and it should have some springs and so on it to help it return back. But what I'm thinking is that I want to have this moved to the other side potentially. Now, what was my reasoning? Yeah, I remember now. I think I want to have the gear change over this side. The reason being that if you look on the engine, just dump the bag, hang on. If you look on the engine, the gear change on the Lex Moto engine, the 125, comes out on the left hand side of the engine. This being the front of the engine, this the rear, left and right. So if I want to have the gear change coming out over this side, that means I'm going to have to move the brake pedal over to the right hand side. I don't want two pedals on the same side. That's just going to get stupid. I've also purchased a different fuel tank. I've gone for a sloper fuel tank. It is a BSA fuel tank, and I'm going to be doing some modifications to it. Basically, I've got to come up with ways to mount the fuel tank down onto this frame, so some sort of bracket has to be worked into the design. Either I've got to weld to the fuel tank, which I'm a bit nervous about doing, to be honest, because I don't want to puncture the tank by MIG welding to it. I could lead solder to it, some brackets, and then work that way, and I could probably get away with doing a relatively reasonable job doing it that way. But welding is a little bit more a little stronger, you know. So the other option is this. This is a tank for an oil frame bike. So it's got this hole which runs right through the middle for pouring oil into it. Now it could be that I can make a bracket which is attached to the frame, which comes up through there, through the oil port, and I could put a bolt there with a fancy cap, and basically screw the tank down by that means, and put some framework underneath the tank so that it doesn't twist. So it basically pushes down on a sprocket, if that's the right term. Yeah, I think it is. It pushes down onto a tubular sprocket that's coming up from the frame, and then you anchor it with a screw going down into it. So that's a way of doing it. Yeah, and here I'm going to where it's had the BSA badge, you know, the teardrop BSA badge. I'm going to probably fill that in. I might put some mesh and put that screw into it to hold the mesh. Put some epoxy on and put the screw in the center, and then skim it over in body filler recess. Then here it's got the metalwork framework for the BSA knee pad rubbers on the side. Now I'm going to do some modifications to that, and I'll talk you through the reason I'm going to do some changes. I'm still going to have a knee pad rubber in this area, but it's going to evolve from being a BSA into being a Triumph. So this is a bit of a fun bike, little fun project. Say anyone who's watched lots of my videos knows, or people know, that I tend to take something a little bit boring and try and make it a little bit more interesting. So there were thousands of these BSA Bantam's made. But it's about time this one had a facelift, I believe. So the way I'm thinking is it's going to slightly evolve into one of these. So this, as many will know, and you can read straight away at the top, is the original Great Escape motorcycle. Now I'm going to have to get some specs out here so I can read exactly what it says. So yeah, I printed all this off and I've put in. So it was the original Great Escape motorcycle was not a BMW. It was a Triumph Trophy TR6 motorcycle from the 1960s. And there's the spec. It had a 3.25 by 19 front wheel and a 4-inch wide by 18-inch rear wheel. Now the wheels on a BSA Bantam are actually 18-inch wheels front and back, so they're like the size of the rear wheel. Now if I wanted, I could change the front wheel into a 19-inch wheel, just like the Triumph Trophy had, and that wouldn't be, I don't suppose that would be very hard to do. I think it would fit in there, but to be honest, 1 inch in difference on the size. Okay, that's on the rim, but the time you enlarge the tyre as well, it starts to get maybe a couple of inches larger. By changing it 1 inch in the centre, it grows even more, because the tyre adds to it and the tyre makes the whole wheel bigger. Right, so that might be done, but I have a feeling I'm going to leave it standard. So I thought, let's do a bit of a themed bike on the Great Escape motorcycle, doing it relatively on the cheap and just by playing around with the look of it. So by using the Lex Moto 125 engine, it's got a slight side profile of the Triumph Trophy, only a slight one. It could be played around with. For instance, like this large aluminium casting which is on the side here, something like that could be created as a chain cover to basically throw the look of the side of the engine off. It could be grafted in onto some of the existing stuff, basically work a chain cover into it. It's all doable. Wouldn't be too hard. The original bike here that was used, this is the bike that was used for the jump at the end of the movie, and they had this really large cushion fitted in on the seat, and you can see that basically it's a later design motorcycle. It's not a World War II bike. It's got sprung forks on the front, so with the rubber on it, just like this bike has. So you got your sprung forks and you got rubber gaiters over them. So and you can see this bike was originally designed to have a double seat, for pillion use, so it would take 2 people. And what they did was they removed that and they just put a mono seat, a 40s design probably, on here, and then they welded up some little sort of like pannier or luggage rack onto the framework at the back. They just bolted or welded one in. But it's basically a very similar design bike to the Bantam. It's just that this one was larger. this was 7 foot long, whereas this one here, as far as I can work out, ends up being 6'2" in length. And this bike, the Bantam, is going to be a hell of a lot lighter than this thing. This, I think, was 160 kilos, this bike. Dry weight 363 pounds, it says there. So I think that was about 160 odd kilos. And I tend to think in kilos these days. So this, however, this will be under 100 kilos. I'm reckoning about 60 to 70 kilos, the whole bike of the weight, the whole weight of the bike when finished. Now that's significantly better if you want to try picking one of these up if they fall over. It will still do about 65 mile an hour, maybe even a little bit more with the Lex Moto engine in it, and a few modifications potentially. It could go a little bit quicker, but it will do a reasonable speed, and because it's light, it will probably still have relatively good acceleration. So what's the term I'm looking for? Say I build one thing out of something else. That's what I get around to doing. So this is the reason I'm putting Triumph knee pads onto a BSA tank. I'm going to take these mounting points off the side here, and I'm going to create a new shape one, which will go into the same 2 screw holes, but it's going to take the Triumph knee pad tank protector, and it's going to fit that on the side. Basically, from what I can see, the knee pad fits the same shape of this tank. It's a relatively generic shape which was used by a number of companies. Now that's where I'm getting to. I've also ordered a Speedo, well it's arrived now, which has got a slightly retro look to it. It's got a normal sort of old-fashioned needle to it, but in the Speedo it's got a modern digital gauge in it to tell you which gear you're in, and it's also got a neutral light on it, so you know when you've stepped the gear into neutral, and then as you tap it through, I think 5 gears on this engine, it'll register a little LCD or LED display what gear you're in. Right, so as you know, I'm trying to make the bike look a little bit like the Triumph Trophy Great Escape bike, although it's a single cylinder and it's just a 125 at the moment. It's not too bad, you know. Basically it's the same colour paintwork, the deep bronze green, you can see. Yeah, I've got the tank off again, doing a little bit more repainting. I've put the front wheel back on. It's currently still masked off because I've been painting it. I've straightened up the steering. All I had to do on that was loosen off the 2, I don't know what we'll call them, crown nuts on the forks. Loosen those off, and loosen off the nuts down, the bolts down here, these on the clamps, and basically just pull the wheel back straight again and tighten it all back up. So that was quite simple. So what I'm doing now is I'm working out the brake modifications, because I've got to move the brake from the left hand side of the bike. For the rear wheel brake, it's got to be moved from the left hand side to the right hand side. So I've been looking at, now originally when this bike was previously set up, the linkage to the rear brake drum was downwards down here, and this operating rod had a really weird cocked up angle. Someone had bent it up in the air to try and get it to that operating arm on the brake drum, which was totally rubbish. So I was looking at the setup on the Triumph Trophy, and the arm should be up on the top and run across. Now it appears that this brake drum works whether you pull the arm that way or that way, you know, underneath or above. The brakes seem to apply, so they apply that way or they apply that way, and then they have a central position. So there must be some sort of, inside the drum it must have some sort of like an egg shape device in there which pushes the springs out in either if you pull that arm in either direction. So that's okay. So what I've done is I've used these engine mounting points here. Let's see if I can get my display back on. Yeah, these engine mounting points just here. There are 1, 2 and 3 and 4 on the other side, and I've managed to rig a tube which goes across and bolts in these. So that's what I'm doing, and I've got an operating arm which I've fabricated here, and it's got 2 adjustment points in the top. I may even drill more, but that basically sits around about here, and that linkage link bar sits in there and operates on that sort of axis there. So you can see that where the hole is in the bottom of that's going to be welded onto the rod which runs across inside, well, under the engine, and that link bar then runs across at the top there. So that all makes sense. So just put this back up on top of the bike. My sheep are coming in. Shut up, you. And this is the rod that runs underneath the engine, and that there is going to be, if we mount it exactly as it should be, so the bike's coming on quite well now. I've got proper vintage Lucas battery box on it. Made the mountings and the clamp and everything in the same sort of way. That's a bit of stainless steel bar I've drilled and tapped, and I had about an M3.5, M4, might be an M5 actually, M5 screw through it. The electronics is all being mounted on the back of the battery box. So I've got the rectifier unit and the CDI and the solenoid all mounted in there at the back. I've mounted the coil here on the side here on one of the engine brackets, which I've made out of stainless steel, and put a little kink in it there so it swings over. So that's all hooked up to the spark plug on this side here. Yeah, I've also got a second-hand original Triumph Bonneville oil tank for the side here. That was chromed I've sanded it down and painted it and lacquered it with petrol resistant lacquer. So that's that sorted out. I'm going to probably put some sort of badge over the Lexmoto name on the engine, but engine's sitting nicely. I've had a chain on from the engine to the rear sprocket, and it all works quite well. It's all in alignment, so that's all good. Changed the handlebars to some black painted or plastic coated handlebars. They are steel, not aluminium. They're not as thick as the original BSA bars, but they're okay. It's basically, I didn't want to have to try painting the chrome handlebars because chrome is just a bugger, and I've got enough chrome on this thing as it is, which I've had to paint over. I'm still waiting for bolts so that I can fit a 2-inch angled riser into here, because the handlebars need to come up and slightly back. I've got a headlamp on order, which has got an amp meter in the top of the headlamp, although you probably won't see the damn thing by the time I put a speedometer on there around here. It's also got, it's got the amp meter and a rotary switch in the headlamp, but the headlamp shape is correct for how it should look, so that's on order from India. I got the cheapest. They're all made in India or China. I just got I went for the opt-in of directly ordering it from India, so it's a bit cheaper, but it'll take a while. So waiting on that, but I'm pretty happy. I'm also tempted to put a dummy exhaust on this side. Once I've got the chrome one, I've got to mount on the other side. I've got two. I've got a stainless steel exhaust which fits really easily. Then I've got a chromed exhaust which is for a Lexmoto engine. But for some reason it's bent all wrong. Maybe it's a defective one, because when I bolt it on, the end of the exhaust box swings out over this way, which is completely incorrect. So I don't understand what's going on there. So the pipe will have to get, the exhaust's going to have to get bended or cut and welded. Don't know yet. But when I've made the exhaust for this side, the chrome one looks very much like the Great Escape exhaust. It's got a very similar shape to it. Okay, what I'm doing now, shut up you two. What I'm doing now is, this is the speedometer cable. Obviously this is the internal section, and it's got to be fitted into this speedo here, which is a Chinese made speedo, and it's got a neutral light on it, and it's got a gear indicator. See there, like the LCD or LED display. I think that, whatever it is. Yeah, so the problem is the standard BSA Bantam speedo cable, which runs from the gear takeoff point down here on the back wheel, along the chassis and so on, up through the frame. It's supposed to go that way, along the frame and up that way, I believe, but because this is a standard cable and I'm putting a 2-inch riser on the top of the forks for the handlebars, I'm having to bring it up higher than it would normally be. So I'm having to run the cable up through the centre of the bike and on the crossbar here. Now, basically, this is a more modern speedo, and the cable is too thick to fit into there. So what I've done is I've used solder, blowtorch and a soldering iron, and I've tinned all the end of this. And what I'm going to try doing is I'm going to try grinding this down slowly with either some sort of wheel on the my angle grinder until it will fit into that aperture in the back of there. If I can get that right, then I'll be happy and I can fit the thing back on the bike. Right, the bike's generally coming on quite well. I've got some different handlebars for it, which are not chromed, so I don't have the problem of trying to paint chrome green because it's a bit of a pain. I've managed to do it over there on that oil tank, which bolts on the side just down there and covers the wiring. And I've also had to paint the chrome on my headlamp bezel. I have I have sanded it down a bit, then I've etch primed it, and then I've put my green paint on, then I've lacquered it over. Obviously this was black painted. I've primed this and then blown it over. In fact, I might have even used primer on this. I think I've gone straight to the green, deep bronze green paint, and I think that's possibly, well, I think it's actually going to work out. I put a light primer coat on here, then I've painted it the deep bronze green, then I've put a lacquer coat over both the top of the forks and the headlamps. Right, so I've managed to tin this, and then I've used my angle grinder here. I've just mounted it in the vise like so, and then I've done one flat at a time on this just to take it down. That side there is a little rough, but I've tried to then, after I've ground it back down, I've then re-tinned it and ran the soldering iron over it, and it is actually quite solid. And you don't need a lot of strength here at this tip. And if I just try it in here now, you will see, if I can get this thing lined up, that it actually does fit into the aperture with a little bit of force from the thread that follows up. It will actually bed in far enough for that to seat in the Speedo, and I can play around with it if it doesn't. If it needs a little bit more fettling, it's quite easy to do. But yeah, so that's the best way I've found of doing this to reduce cable size, is to tin it and run some solder onto it using some like soldering flux, this paste here, and you can keep dipping the actual end of the cable into it and keep refluxing it, so that you'll know that as much of the solder as you possibly can runs through the actual weave of the cable, so that when you take the grinder to it, it will hold it together a little bit better. Right, okay, so I'm going to try putting all that together and see how it goes. Okay, so that fits all the way up flush into the back of my Speedo, so that drive now will work, and it's a solid fit, no problems. And the other end of the cable is coming out that far here, and I'm just about to hook that up. So I just don't want to drop my Speedo. I'll put this down carefully here on the floor, and we can present. Where's my collar? there's my collar down here. Right, so present that up. And if we bring that in, we should find, hopefully, that will fit straight. Yep, there you go. Fits straight into there, and that nut will do up, and it'll work. So there we go. So there you go. It fits. So now the next job will be, well, when I finish running some of the electrical wiring in, will be to run this cable back in along the frame, along this trailing arm suspension unit here, and then up through this area here, and I cable tie it up and along the crossbar and take it through, and it all works quite well because I've already tried it. Well, I think it's looking pretty good. It's not completely finished yet. I've got to still do some wiring. The headlight's not been wired up, tail light's not fitted and reg plate. Still got rubber to mess around with on the front wheel arch. Exhaust's on, but that might be changed for a different model later on. Should probably start up. Let's see, give it a little gas. Then choke on mid choke. Hang on, yeah, help if the key's turned. That all needs to be rigged up. I've managed to get the speedo cable functioning. Sounds pretty good. Starts quite easily. See if she'll tick over. There you go, ticking over. It's in neutral, gear's not spinning. Yeah, wanted the choke taken off. I put basically a 3-position choke control on there, so it was on mid. Wanted the choke removing off it, and it probably would have carried on going. Anyway, that'll do for the moment. Shut up. Right, so this is how the bike's coming on. I'm working on the electronics at the moment and wiring up the bulk of the stuff into the headlamp here at the front. So this is the plug which goes onto the back of the lamp, and this is an Indian made headlight unit with a rotary switch here, so it's off, dip beam, main beam there, and it's also got an amp meter in the headlamp. At the moment I've got it rocked up a bit, so hence why it's going to be pointing in the air and the wiring's all tight. Yeah, now the wires which went to this front headlamp unit, they were very well, they looked alright from the outside. The insulation was nice and thick, but once you strip the insulation back, there was barely a couple of copper conductors inside it, and I knew they were just going to snap, so I've had to put new wire into these, and I've just spiraled the ends round and then tinned them with the solder so that they don't fit through the mica board, which and they sit nicely onto the back of the headlamp, which is here. Yeah, so they make contact with the two lead points on the back of the lamp, on the back of the bulb, I should say. Now, the issues I'm having at the moment is I've fitted one of these combined LED tail lamp units, and it's got red plate light which shines out the bottom down here onto the plate once it's on. It's got indicators built left and right, and it's got a brake light red lamp built into it. The issue it has is there's wires for all of these things apart from red tail light. So it has clear tail light which shines down and illuminates the plate, but all we've got for the red one is the brake light. So I realised the best option is to have a 2 brightness feed to the tail light, or brake light as it's listed, as what I should say. So what I'm doing at the moment is I've worked out that if we come up, I don't know if let's see if I can see my little diagram. I was sat watching TV last night, and I sort of worked out in my head. Sorry about there's a bit of print on the back of this, but maybe you can see this diagram. Basically, what I've worked out is if I have my tail light bulb, which is, let's get a pointer, which is there, the old-fashioned bulb, which goes down to earth on one side, yeah? Now, if we have that, then we use a forward bias diode. Originally I'd drawn a resistor in there, and then I've scribbled it out and put a forward bias diode, and there's a good reason for it being a diode. So we've got our switch and our power supply over here, so we've got it switched on by the handbrake pedal, which will be this one here. So not pedal, handbrake lever, and there's a micro switch down here which will supply the power to it. Right, so that's our switch. So where are we going? Yeah, so basically normal function, it goes through a forward bias diode and the light will come on. Hang on, I'm telling a lie here. That's the tail light. See, I've got the camera in front of me. It clearly says their tail light. So this is the tail light switch. So that's basically when I turn the lamps on using the big green headlamp at the front, it'll have a feed going to the back tail light, and it'll be through a forward biased diode, probably a silicon one, and that will bring the lamp on. Now the plan is, while it's doing this, it will also have a wire fed off before the forward bias diode, which comes to the registration lamp bulb. So we will have a tail light bulb coming on through that diode, and the reg lamp illuminating. Now, when we want the lamp to be brighter, we apply the brake light circuit on, and we do it after the forward bias diode. Basically, the diode is reducing the power that's fed to the bulb, the voltage. So basically it's acting as a resistor. It's just enough to cause a difference in the light between brake and tail, and I could probably demonstrate that if I'm careful. Let's see. If I turn my lamp on here, sorry, the power on there, and then we go to the back. Right, that's one light setting there. Now, which one have I got it on? So basically that is going through the forward biased diode there. Now that's that position, and then if I hook this wire over there, the light goes brighter. Yeah, so that's brake light setting, and let's see if I can set the camera up here. I'll come up with a way. This is a body camera, so right, so you can see that there shining. So that's well, that's brake light position. If I flick this diode back into the circuit like that, that's tail light. So there's a difference in brightness. I'll just change that backwards and forwards a couple of times so you can see. So that's brake light, tail light. And if I want to show the registration plate working as well, trying to get remember which wire is which here. I think that's my green wire, which is down here. Yeah, okay. So if I hook the green light in and I put it on the other side of the forward biased diode, that brings that in. I'm just hooking wires on here and trying not to cause a short to the body of the bike at the same time. Right, so that there. No, I'm not seeing the white light below. Something's wrong there. I think you're seeing this basically. Yeah, so that's the illuminated reg plate. So I've put my hand there. You can see the reg plate is illuminated. Down here, I think that. Hang on. Try to get this correct in my head. I think that is. Yeah, so you can see the gear display coming up. If I hook this over a little bit, just bend that wire into a little loop and hook it across. Be better off if I was using crocodile clips. Anyway, yeah, so we can see our display is now working. And if I tap the pedal down here, if I tap it down one position, that should go to 1. Yeah, like so. And if I tap the pedal back again, just a touch, it should go back to 0. and then if I push the pedal at the back again, it should go to 2. Yeah, it tends to work better when the engine's rotating, because when the engine's rotating, the gears are moving around, and then it slots into the next gear much easier. Yeah, so I need to do some little work on that anyway. You are a mess, missus. You are a mess. Look at all this. You need to get down to the hairdressers. Get it tidy up. You do. And no shouting at me because I'm not messing with you. Okay? Look at all that. Look at all that. Well, you don't need that in your face, do you? No, you don't. No, you. Right. Okay, never mind the sheep. Yeah, chain alignment. Okay, so my little chain alignment tool has just arrived, because as I mentioned, it threw the chain off when I test drove it on the path, but I've sorted that out since. Anyway, just looking at the chain alignment tool and looking down, you can see it ain't bad. Hang on, my screen's gone off. There we go. So, yeah, looking down there, you know, I'm relatively happy with that. You know, it's a little off. I could force it to get better into alignment, but I think for the time being, I'm going to run with that. If I need to mess about, it might be that I'm going to have to shift the engine over, say 5mm, and that would take any of the issues out of it. Right, so I've got the new exhaust on it now, so that's a big improvement. I think it looks a lot more correct now. It's got a nice old vintage chrome exhaust. Yeah, I still need to make some sort of a little chain cover for down there for the drive sprocket, but yeah, quite pleased. It's a lot quieter now, totally different engine note.